My ex-wife dragged me to court over payment of child support. She opposed when I asked for a DNA test to be done, but the white judge insisted. When the results were out, everyone in the court was surprised. Hello. Thank you for your continuous support. This means a lot to us. If you enjoy the stories we share, kindly subscribe to this channel. It will be great if you can leave a comment on which city you are watching from. We might just give you a shout-out in our next story. Today's special shout-out goes to Janice from Georgia. We are glad you enjoy our stories. Now let's dive into the details of today's story. I sat there in that cramped courtroom, hands clenched on my lap, feeling like a man on trial for a crime I didn't commit. The wooden bench under me creaked every time I shifted, and the air buzzed with tension thick enough to choke on. Across the room, Laura stood with her lawyer, her voice slicing through the hum like a blade. My ex-wife, sharp-tongued, unyielding, demanded more child support for Robert, our 5-year-old son. She painted me as the villain, the deadbeat who'd left her struggling, her words dripping with venom as she glared at me over the rims of her glasses. "You've got a duty, Eddie," she snapped, her tone rehearsed, like she'd practiced it in front of a mirror. "Robert deserves better than a father who can't step up." Duty. That word landed like a punch. She had the nerve to talk about duty after she'd torched our marriage 2 years ago, admitting she'd been with someone else, multiple someones, she'd hinted, before walking out. I'd swallowed the betrayal then, kept paying for Robert because I loved that kid, even with the gnawing doubt in my gut. But now? Now she wanted more money, and I was done being her doormat. The judge, an older guy with a face like cracked leather, peered at me over his notes. "Mr. Harper, you've heard the petitioner's request. Anything to say?" I stood, my throat tight, and forced the words out. "Your Honor, I've paid every month since the divorce. On time. Every dime. But I've got a request of my own." I paused, glancing at Laura. Her eyes narrowed, like she knew what was coming. "I want a DNA test. For Robert." The room went dead silent for a split second before Laura exploded. "Are you kidding me, Eddie? This is low, even for you. Petty and vindictive, just pathetic." She turned to the judge, hands flailing. "He's trying to dodge responsibility, Your Honor. He's always been like this. Weak, spineless, enough." The judge cut in, his voice flat but firm. He leaned forward, eyeing me. "Mr. Harper, you're questioning paternity after 5 years. Why now?" I swallowed hard. "Because I've had doubts for a long time." Things didn't add up, her late nights, the way she dodged questions. "I need to know the truth." Laura's lawyer jumped in, arguing it was irrelevant, that I'd signed the birth certificate, that I was legally Robert's father. But the judge wasn't swayed. He rubbed his chin, then nodded. "I'm ordering the test. We'll reconvene when the results are in." Next case. Laura stormed out, her heels clacking like gunfire, and I just stood there, my pulse hammering. I'd done it. I'd finally said it out loud, the suspicion that had been eating at me since the day she confessed to cheating. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about knowing if the kid I'd raised, the boy I'd read bedtime stories to, was even mine. Driving home, my mind spun back to those last months of our marriage. Laura had changed, snapped at me over nothing, stayed out late with friends she wouldn't name. I'd catch her texting, her phone angled away, and when I'd ask, she'd roll her eyes and call me paranoid. "You're suffocating me, Eddie," she'd say, like I was the problem. And then there was Mark, my older brother, always dropping by unannounced. He'd sprawl on our couch, cracking jokes, charming Laura while I cooked dinner or fixed something around the house. I trusted him. Trusted her. What a fool I'd been. That night, alone in my apartment, I poured a glass of whiskey and sat in the dark. The place was small, bare, a far cry from the house we'd shared, but it was mine. No trace of her here, except the memories I couldn't shake. I thought about Robert, his gap-toothed grin, the way he'd hug me like I was his whole world. I loved him from the moment I held him in the hospital, tiny and red-faced, even though Laura had been distant, distracted, even then. But love didn't erase doubt. Not when her lies had piled up like unpaid bills. I remembered one night, maybe a year before she left. I'd come home early from work, found Mark's jacket on the couch. Laura said he'd stopped by to borrow a tool, but he was gone, and she was flustered, her hair mussed like she'd just woken up. I'd brushed it off. Mark was family, my big brother, the guy who'd taught me how to throw a punch and tie a tie. But now, that memory twisted in my gut like a knife. The whiskey burned going down, and I set the glass on the table, staring at it. What if Robert wasn't mine? What if everything I'd built my life around, fatherhood, family, was a lie? I'd spent years trying to be the man Laura wanted, working overtime, fixing her car, biting my tongue when she tore me down. And for what? To find out I'd been played? I leaned back, closing my eyes. The test would take a week, maybe 2. Until then, I'd wait, trapped in this limbo of not knowing. Laura's words echoed in my head, weak, spineless, and I clenched my fists. She thought she'd won, thought she could keep bleeding me dry. But I wasn't running anymore. I'd asked for the truth, and whatever it was, I'd face it. The phone sat silent on the counter, but I knew she'd call soon, try to guilt me into backing off. I wouldn't. Not this time. I stood, poured the rest of the whiskey down the sink, and made a promise to myself. No matter what that test said, I was done living her lies. The truth was coming, and I wasn't sure if it'd free me or break me. But I'd find out soon enough. The days after that courtroom showdown dragged like a slow bleed. I'd wake up every morning with my stomach knotted, checking my phone for a call from the lab that never came. Laura didn't waste time, though. She started blowing up my inbox with texts, long, rambling ones at first, calling me selfish, saying I was tearing Robert's world apart. Then they got shorter, sharper. "You're a coward, Eddie. Always have been." I didn't reply. What was there to say? She'd built her castle of lies, and I was just waiting for the wrecking ball. Work kept me sane, clocking in at the garage, fixing engines, losing myself in the hum of machinery. But even there, I couldn't escape the what-ifs. What if Robert wasn't mine? What if he was? Either way, I'd been a fool, and that stung worse than any wrench slipping on a bolt. I kept my head down, avoided the guy's questions about my bloodshot eyes. They didn't need to know my life was a ticking bomb. Friday night, I met Sam at Rusty's, the dive bar down the street from my place. He was already there, nursing a beer, his lanky frame slouched over the table. Sam had been my best friend since high school. Loyal, loud, the kind of guy who'd punch a wall for you and then laugh about the bruise. I slid into the booth across from him, and he pushed a bottle my way without a word. "You look like hell," he said finally, smirking. "Laura's still riding you." "Like a damn jockey," I muttered, taking a swig. The beer was cold, bitter, matched my mood. "She's pissed about the test. Keeps saying I'm abandoning Robert." Sam snorted. "She's got some balls, I'll give her that. Cheats on you, leaves you, and still expects you to play wallet daddy. You sure about this DNA thing?" I leaned back, staring at the bottle's label peeling at the edge. I've never been sure of anything with her. But I can't keep going like this, man. Paying for a kid that might not be mine, wondering every time I look at him, it's eating me alive. He nodded, tapping his fingers on the table. "Then you're doing the right thing. Gut's usually right about this stuff." "What's she saying about Mark?" I froze mid-sip. "Mark? What about him?" Sam shrugged, casual, like he hadn't just dropped a live wire. "Just figured he'd weigh in. He's your brother, her buddy. Always thought he was too cozy with her back in the day." I set the bottle down harder than I meant to. "He's been quiet. Haven't talked to him since the hearing." "You think he knows something?" "Dunno. But he's Mark, always got an angle. Watch yourself." That stuck with me. I hadn't told Sam about finding Mark's jacket that night, about how Laura's excuses never quite lined up. My brother was a charmer, always had been. Girls flocked to him growing up while I stayed in the background, the quiet one. He'd show up at our house with that easy grin, cracking open a beer, making Laura laugh in ways I never could. I chalked it up to sibling rivalry, jealousy even. Now, Sam's words lit a fuse I didn't want to touch. Back at my apartment, I couldn't sit still. I dug through a box in the closet, old photos, stuff I hadn't touched since the divorce. There it was, a picture from Robert's 3rd birthday. Me holding the cake, Laura blowing up balloons, and Mark in the corner, kneeling next to Robert, pointing at the candles. I stared at it, my chest tightening. Robert's eyes dark, like Mark's. His nose, too. I'd never let myself see it before, brushed it off as family resemblance. But now? Now it glared at me like a neon sign. I tossed the photo back in the box and slammed the lid shut. My phone buzzed. Another text from Laura. "You're ruining everything, Eddie. Hope you're happy." I deleted it, same as the others. She wasn't getting in my head, not tonight. But Mark, I couldn't shake him. I almost called him, thumb hovering over his number, but stopped. What would I even say? Hey, bro, you bang my wife and knock her up? No, I'd wait for the test. Facts over feelings. Saturday morning, I was scrubbing grease off my hands when my phone rang. Not Laura this time, unknown number. I answered, cautious. Mr. Harper? This is Dr. Ellis from the lab. Your results are ready. We've sent them to the court, and they'll notify you for the next hearing. My mouth went dry. Thanks, I managed, and hung up. That was it. The truth was out there, sealed in some envelope, waiting to blow my life apart, or maybe put it back together. I didn't know which scared me more. Laura would fight it, twist it, whatever the outcome. And Mark? If Sam was right, if he was tangled up in this, I'd lose more than a wife. I'd lose the only family I had left. I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. I needed air, needed to move. The hearing was days away, maybe a week if the court dragged its feet. Until then, I was stuck in the shadowland, caught between rage and hope. Laura's words clawed at me, coward, but I wasn't running. Not anymore. The lab had the answer, and soon, I would too. I just hoped I could handle it when it came. The courtroom felt smaller that day, like the walls were closing in to crush me. I sat on the same creaky bench, my hands sweaty, my tie too tight around my neck. Laura was across the aisle, perched next to her lawyer, her face a mask of defiance. She wouldn't look at me, just stared straight ahead, lips pressed into a thin line. The judge shuffled papers at the bench, his expression unreadable, and I wondered if he knew what was coming. I sure as hell didn't, not really. I'd spent the week since the lab call pacing my apartment, dodging Laura's texts, trying to brace myself for whatever this moment would bring. The bailiff called the case, and the judge cleared his throat. We're here to review the results of the paternity test requested by Mr. Edward Harper regarding the minor, Robert Harper. Counsel, any objections before we proceed? Laura's lawyer stood, all slick confidence. Your Honor, we maintain this test is a waste of time. Mr. Harper has acted as Robert's father for 5 years, legally, financially, emotionally. This is a ploy to shirk his obligations. The judge waved him off. Noted. But the test was ordered, and the results are in. Let's hear them. He nodded to the clerk, a young woman who stepped forward with an envelope. My pulse pounded in my ears as she tore it open and read aloud. Based on the DNA analysis conducted by Precision Labs, Edward Harper is excluded as the biological father of Robert Harper. The probability of paternity is 0%. Further analysis identifies Mark Harper as the biological father, with a probability of 99.98%. The words hit like a sledgehammer. 0%. Not mine. Mark's. My brother. The room erupted. Gasps from the gallery. Laura's lawyer whispering furiously in her ear, the judge banging his gavel for order. I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. My eyes locked on Laura, and for the first time, she looked back, pale, caught, like a deer in headlights. Mark was Robert's father. My brother had slept with my wife, and I'd raised his kid for 5 years. The judge kept talking, something about adjusting support orders, but I barely heard him. My mind spun back to every moment I'd missed it. Mark at our house, Laura's excuses, the way Robert's laugh echoed his uncle's. I'd been blind, stupid, trusting them both while they'd stabbed me in the back. The hearing ended in a blur, and I stumbled out into the hall, my legs shaky, my chest burning. Laura caught up to me by the exit, her voice low and urgent. Eddie, wait. We need to talk. I spun on her, fury boiling over. Talk. You've got nothing to say I want to hear. Mark? My brother? How long, Laura? She flinched, but didn't back down. It wasn't planned. It just happened. You were always working, always distant. Mark was there. He listened. Listened. I barked a laugh, bitter and hollow. That's your excuse? You screwed my brother because I was fixing cars to pay our bills? And Robert, he's been his all along. Her eyes darted away, then back, hard now. You were never man enough for me, Eddie. Mark was. You want the truth? There it is. That cut deeper than the DNA results. 5 years of marriage, of me trying to be enough, working late, swallowing her jabs, loving a kid I thought was mine, and she threw it back in my face like I was nothing. I stepped closer, voice low. You're a liar, Laura. And a coward. You don't get to rewrite this. Before she could answer, I saw Mark pushing through the crowd, tall, broad-shouldered, his usual swagger gone. He looked at me, guilt written all over his face, and held up his hands. Eddie, man, I'm sorry. It was a mistake. One time. I cut him off, stepping into his space. 5 years ago was a one time? You gonna lie to my face too? He opened his mouth, then shut it, shoulders slumping. I didn't mean for this. It got out of hand. I never wanted you to shut up. I snapped. You're my brother. My blood. And you did this. I turned away, couldn't stand looking at him. Laura called after me, but I kept walking, out the doors, into the parking lot where the air hit my face like a slap. I climbed into my truck and sat there, gripping the wheel until my knuckles whitened. Robert wasn't mine. The kid I'd tucked in every night, taught to ride a tricycle, wasn't my son, he was my nephew. Mark's son. The betrayal doubled me over, a physical ache I couldn't shake. I loved that boy with everything I had, and now he was a reminder of the two people I trusted most tearing me apart. Laura's words looped in my head, not man enough, and I hated how they stuck. Had I been too soft? Too blind? I thought of calling Sam, spilling it all, but my phone stayed in my pocket. This was mine to carry for now. I started the engine, peeled out of the lot, and drove, nowhere, anywhere, just away. They were gone to me now, both of them. Laura and Mark could rot in their mess. I'd spent years tied to her lies, to his betrayal, and I was done. But as the road blurred past, one question clawed at me. What now? Robert was still out there, a kid caught in this wreckage, and I didn't know where I fit anymore. I'd wanted the truth, and I'd gotten it. Only problem was, it left me with nothing but ashes. The days after the courtroom turned into a haze. I moved through them like a ghost, clocking in at the garage, wrenching bolts, driving home to my empty apartment. I'd shut Laura out, blocked her number after one last text. You'll regret this, Eddie. Mark tried calling too, left a voicemail I deleted without listening. I didn't want their words, their excuses. They'd taken enough from me, my trust, my family, 5 years of my life. I wasn't giving them my sanity too. Nights were the worst. I'd sit on my couch, staring at the wall, replaying Laura's jab, not man enough, until it felt like a brand burned into me. I'd see Mark's face, that guilty slump in the courthouse hall, and wonder how long he'd laughed behind my back. My brother. The guy who'd taught me to fish, who'd punched a bully for me in 6th grade. Now he was the guy who'd slept with my wife and left me raising his kid. And Robert, God, Robert. I couldn't think about him without my chest caving in. He wasn't mine, but I loved him like he was. Still did, in some messed up way. Sam dragged me out that Friday, wouldn't take no for an answer. We ended up at Rusty's again, the bar's dim lights and sticky tables a grim kind of comfort. He slid a beer across to me, same as last time, and leaned back in the booth. You gonna talk, or just brood all night? I took a long pull, let the bitterness settle. What's to say? My wife screwed my brother. My son's my nephew. Whole damn thing's a joke. He smirked, but it didn't reach his eyes. Yeah, it's a punchline from hell. But you're still here, man. That's something. Am I? I set the bottle down, hard. Feels like I'm just the idiot who didn't see it. 5 years, Sam. I built my life around that kid, around her, and it's all gone. Sam leaned forward, voice low. They're the idiots, Eddie. Laura's a snake, and Mark, hell, I'd deck him if he showed his face. But you? You're not gone. You're pissed, and you've got every right to be. Use it. I wanted to believe him, but the weight of it all pressed down too hard. She said I wasn't man enough. Keeps echoing, like she's still here, twisting the knife. He snorted. That's her game. Make you feel small so she looks big. Don't buy it. She's the one who couldn't hack it, running to Mark like some cheap fling. Maybe he was right. I didn't know, but I clung to his words like a lifeline, something to hold while the ground kept shifting under me. We drank in silence after that, him cracking dark jokes about Mark's lousy luck with women, me half listening, half lost in my head. Sunday, I drove to Robert's school. Didn't plan it, just found myself there, parked across the street, watching the playground. He was out there, chasing a soccer ball, his dark hair flopping over his eyes. Mark's eyes. I gripped the steering wheel, torn between driving off and running over to hug him. He didn't know the truth, didn't know I wasn't his dad anymore. Maybe he never would. But seeing him, alive, happy, oblivious, cracked something in me. I'd lost him, but he hadn't lost me. Not yet. I went home and dug out that photo again, the one from his third birthday. I hadn't touched it since last week, but I needed to see it, to face it. Mark kneeling next to him, pointing at the cake. Me in the background, clueless. I ripped it in half, Mark on one side, me and Robert on the other, and tossed his piece in the trash. It didn't fix anything, but it felt good, like I was cutting him out for real. Monday night, my buzzer rang. I opened the door, and there she was, Laura, standing on my stoop, eyes red, makeup smudged. She looked smaller than I remembered, frayed at the edges. Eddie, please. We need to talk. I crossed my arms, kept the door half shut. You've got nothing I want to hear. I'm begging you, she said, voice breaking. Mark's gone. He walked out after the hearing. I'm alone, Eddie. I've got nothing left. Good, I shot back. You made your bed. Sleep in it. She stepped closer, desperation spilling out. I was wrong, okay? I messed up. But we can fix this, you, me, Robert. We can be a family again. I laughed, sharp and cold. A family? You think I'd touch that after what you did? You and Mark can rot together. Get out. Eddie, she started, but I slammed the door, locked it, leaned against it until her footsteps faded. My hands shook, adrenaline surging. She'd come crawling back, and I'd sent her packing. It should have felt like a win, but it didn't. It just left me hollow. I sank onto the couch, staring at the ceiling. Laura was desperate, Mark was a ghost, and Robert was caught in the middle. I'd cut them out, but the hole they'd left gaped wide open. Sam was right. I was still here. Pissed, yeah, but alive. I just didn't know what to do with it. Laura's plea stuck with me, not because I wanted her back, but because it meant she was breaking. And if she broke, what happened to Robert? That question gnawed at me, kept me up all night, wondering if this mess was really over or just starting. Laura's visit rattled me more than I'd admit. I'd slammed the door on her, sure, but her words, I've got nothing left, kept creeping back, like a splinter I couldn't pull out. She looked broken, a far cry from the woman who'd sneered at me in court. I didn't care about her, not after everything. But Robert? That was different. He was still out there, 5 years old and clueless, tangled in her mess. I shoved the thought down and went to work, burying myself in engine blocks and oil stains, but it followed me anyway. Tuesday, I started therapy. Sam had pushed me into it, said I'd crack if I didn't let some of this out. The shrink's office was plain beige walls, a desk, a chair that swallowed me whole. Dr. Patel, a guy with a calm voice and sharp eyes, didn't waste time. What brings you here, Eddie? I shifted, uncomfortable. My ex-wife cheated with my brother. Turns out the kid I raised isn't mine, he's his. Found out last week. I'm pissed. Lost. He nodded, scribbling something. That's a lot to carry. How do you feel about her now? Hate her, I said, quick and flat. She called me weak, said I wasn't man enough. Still stings, even if I know it's her garbage. And your brother? I clenched my jaw. He's dead to me. Haven't seen him since the hearing, don't want to. We talked for an hour. About Laura's venom, Mark's betrayal, Robert's laugh. I told him about the photo I'd ripped up, the way I'd watched Robert at school. Dr. Patel didn't judge, just listened, then said, "You're grieving a life you thought you had. That's real. But you're also deciding who you are without it. What do you want, Eddie?" I didn't have an answer. Not yet. But walking out, I felt lighter, like I'd offloaded a piece of the wreckage. Laura's insults still echoed, but it sounded fainter, less like truth and more like her last desperate swing. Friday night, she came back. I was heating up a frozen pizza when the buzzer went off. I opened the door, and there she was again, Laura, eyes puffy, clutching a grocery bag. Eddie, I'm not here to fight. Just hear me out. I leaned on the frame, blocking her way. You've got 1 minute. She swallowed, voice shaky. I'm drowning. Mark's gone. Took off after the test. Won't answer my calls. I can't pay the rent. Can't keep Robert in preschool. I know I screwed up, but I'm trying to fix it. For him. For him. I repeated, cold. Not for me. You don't get to play that card after what you did. I'm not. She stopped, tears spilling. I'm sorry, okay? I was wrong. About you, about everything. Give me a chance to make it right. I studied her, frail, frantic, a shadow of the woman who'd gutted me. Part of me wanted to believe her, but I'd fallen for that trap before. You're sorry because you're broke, not because you mean it. I'm not your fix. She wiped her face, nodded like she'd expected that. Fine. Hate me. But Robert, he's innocent. Help him. Even if you won't help me. I shut the door, slower this time, and stood there, pizza forgotten. She was right about one thing. Robert didn't deserve this. But I wasn't sure I could trust her to use any help I gave for him, not her. I went to bed restless, Dr. Patel's question bouncing around. What do you want, Eddie? Sunday, she pulled her final card. I was on the couch, flipping through channels, when the buzzer sounded again. I opened the door, and my breath caught. Laura stood there, Robert at her side, his little hand in hers. He looked up at me, eyes big, and grinned. Hi, Daddy. My heart twisted. I crouched down, forced a smile. Hey, buddy. How you doing? Good, he chirped, oblivious. Mommy said we're visiting you. I straightened, glaring at Laura. She dressed him up, clean shirt, combed hair, like she'd staged this. What the hell is this? She met my eyes, pleading. He misses you, Eddie. I can't do this alone. You don't have to take me back. Just be there for him. Please. Robert tugged my pant leg, holding up a toy car. Look what I got. Can we play? I took the car, throat tight, and glanced at Laura. She brought him here to guilt me, banking on that smile to crack my armor. And damn it, it worked. He was still the kid I'd loved, even if the blood wasn't mine. But I saw her game too. I stood, handed the car back to him, and faced her. He's not my son, I said, voice steady. He's Mark's. You don't get to rewrite that because you're desperate. I'll help Robert, money, whatever he needs, but it goes through a lawyer, not you. You're on your own, Laura. Her face crumpled, but she nodded, grabbing Robert's hand. Fine. I'll call you tomorrow. No, I said. I'll call you when I'm ready. Go. She hesitated, then turned, leading him away. Robert waved over his shoulder, and I waved back, chest aching. I shut the door, slid down it, and sat there, head in my hands. I'd drawn the line. Robert got my help. She didn't. It was the right call, but it tore me open. He called me daddy, and I'd sent him away. What kind of man was I now? I didn't know, but I'd chosen something me for once. And that had to be enough. Months passed after I sent Laura away with Robert that Sunday. Time didn't heal the mess, not completely, but it smoothed the jagged edges, made it easier to breathe. I stuck to my word. I set up a small fund for Robert through a lawyer, enough to cover preschool and basics, with strict rules so Laura couldn't touch it. She called once to confirm, her voice flat. No fight left. I didn't ask where Mark was, didn't care. They'd both faded into the background. Ghosts I'd stopped letting haunt me. Therapy with Dr. Patel became a lifeline. We met every Tuesday, and I unloaded more than I'd expected, anger at Laura's betrayal, guilt over Robert, fury at Mark's cowardice. One session, I told him about that last visit, how Robert's, hi, daddy, had nearly broken me. I wanted to take him in, I admitted, but I couldn't. Not with her. Dr. Patel leaned back, calm as ever. You chose boundaries over chaos. That's strength, Eddie, not weakness. What's next for you? I've been chewing on that for weeks. Starting over, I guess. Figuring out who I am without them. He smiled, rare for him. Good. You've got the pieces, put them together. I took that to heart. Work stayed steady. I'd always been good with engines, and the garage gave me purpose. Sam kept me grounded too, dragging me to Rusty's or out fishing when I got too quiet. He'd rib me about my lone wolf phase, but I could tell he was proud I hadn't folded. I even picked up a guitar again, something I ditched when Laura and I got serious. The chords came back slow, clumsy, but strumming alone in my apartment felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. One Saturday, I drove to the park near Robert's school. I'd done it before, watched him from a distance, but this time felt different. I parked, leaned against my truck, and spotted him on the swings, kicking his legs high. His hair was longer now, curling at the ends, and he laughed with another kid pushing him. I smiled, bittersweet. He wasn't mine, not by blood, but he'd been my world once. Now he was my nephew, a kid I'd helped from afar. A woman approached him, short, blonde, not Laura. She handed him a water bottle, said something that made him hop off the swing and follow her. I tensed, then saw Laura on a bench nearby, watching them. She looked worn, thinner, her eyes on her phone. The blonde must have been a friend, maybe a sitter. Laura glanced up, caught me staring, and froze. I didn't wave, didn't move. She looked away first, and I let her. Whatever she was doing, scrambling, surviving, it wasn't my problem anymore. I thought about Mark too, wondered where he'd landed. Sam had heard through a mutual buddy that he'd skipped town, chasing some job upstate. Typical, running when it got hard. I didn't miss him, not like I thought I would. He'd been my hero once, the big brother who'd had my back. Now he was just a guy who'd wrecked us both and bailed. I'd grieved that loss already. Driving home, I turned up the radio, let some old rock song fill the cab. The ache was still there, Robert's wave goodbye, Laura's venom, Mark's silence, but it didn't own me. I'd spent years trying to be enough for them, twisting myself into knots to fit their picture. Now I was done. Dr. Patel was right. I had the pieces. Time to build something new. Back at my place, I tidied up, something I'd started doing more. The apartment wasn't much, secondhand couch, a TV, my guitar in the corner, but it was mine. I'd hung a few photos on the wall. Me and Sam fishing last month, a shot of my old man's truck I'd restored. No trace of Laura or Mark, no echoes of that life. I liked it that way. That night, I called Sam. You free tomorrow? Thinking of hitting the lake. He laughed. What? You're a social butterfly now. Yeah, I'm in. Bring the beer. Deal? I said, grinning. It was small, but it felt good plans, a friend, a day ahead I could own. Monday, I went back to the park, one last time. Robert was there again, on the slide now, the blonde woman nearby. Laura wasn't in sight, maybe working, maybe hiding. I watched him slide down, arms up, fearless. He didn't need me hovering, didn't need daddy anymore. I'd been his father once, in every way that mattered, and I'd always love him for it. But he was Mark's son, Laura's kid, and I was Eddie Harper, uncle, not dad. I could live with that. I walked back to my truck, the sun warm on my back. For the first time in months, I felt light, unburdened. Laura's words, not man enough, had lost their teeth. She'd been wrong. I was enough, maybe not for her, not for Mark, but for me. That was the win I'd fought for, the one that mattered. I climbed in, started the engine, and pulled away. The park faded in my rear view. Robert a speck of memory I'd carry but not chase. Ahead was open road, a life I'd make mine. I cranked the radio louder, let the guitar riffs drown out the past, and drove into whatever came next. I was ready. Thanks for sticking with Eddie's journey to the end. What did you think? Did he make the right call cutting ties? Or should he have fought harder for Robert? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read every one. If this story hit you, smash that like button, share it with someone who'd get it, and subscribe so you don't miss the next tale. Hit the bell too. We've got more raw, real stories coming your way. See you in the next one.